That's a biggie. Turn over your whole will. I mean, that sounds like a bad word to some people. You maybe cringe inside to think of turning your will over to something that you can't see, that you just have to put your faith in and have belief in, but yet you're willing to submit your will. That's where the power is. It's almost like a spiritual key that's given to us when we are willing to submit our will over. But see, James 4 says, submit yourself to God. That's the first thing you have to do. Submit to God. God, I give myself to you. I pray your plan and will and power be done. I say you are God, and you are in control of everything because I submit myself to you. And then you resist the devil and what he's trying to do. And he has to go. He has to go. But you know, if you're trying to resist something and the enemy comes along and he finds something in you, that becomes an open door, and he has power to be able to stay there, permissions, so to speak. Like when they were coming to get Jesus to take him, to crucify him and torment him, when they come, you know, he says, you know, that they're coming, but the enemy is coming for him. I'm putting this in my own words, but the enemy was coming for him, but he found nothing in him. The enemy did not find anything in Jesus. So Jesus lived a sinless life. And some people would say, well, yeah, because he, you know, he was God, he had God, but see, Jesus was fully man and he was fully God. But he was given a choice. Every single choice that he made to show us the right way and how to resist things, it was his choice. You know, he didn't even have to go to the cross to die. He could have called upon the Father. He could have called upon 10,000 angels to come down and deliver him, but he didn't. He chose to submit his will to the Father, because he went to the garden and he prayed and he sought the Lord. He prayed so intensely that he had like drops of blood, because he knew in his spirit what was coming. And he was wrestling. He was wrestling. And he even prayed and said to God, is there any way that this cup, what cup? The cup that he was about to face, being tormented and tortured and hung on a cross to die, is there any way that this cup could pass from me? And then he said, but nonetheless, not my will, but yours be done. Look at that. That was a big message he left with us before he went to the cross. This big message that he prayed and surrendered his life. And he said, no matter what. And see, that tells us, you know, when fear and sin comes knocking at our door, we have to say, oh, Lord, you know, I submit my will to you. Sometimes the sin and the fears and the things that come to us is because of things we want. We want certain things, and it opens the door, because, see, sometimes the enemy has permission to come because of stuff that's inside of us. And we have to submit ourselves, and we have to say, Lord, you know, sometimes, you know, we pray, Lord, I have this idea of something that I would like to see happen, or something I desire that I want. But, you know, I understand that you know the beginning and the end, and if this would be good for me or not. So I submit myself to your will. I say, Lord, not my will, but your will be done. Because, hey, if Jesus Christ, the Son of God, can lay his life down and say, God, nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done, then that is a message for us today. We must do the same. And if we would do that when fear or sin, you know, comes knocking at our heart's door, crouching at the door, trying to lure us away because of our emotions and things like that that can cause us to easily go astray. If we would say, I submit myself to you, Lord. I want your will to be done. I'm not going to yield to this. I know you're a good God, and I trust you. Now, you can't have both. You will hate the one and love the other. You can't straddle the fence on these things. You can say you have great faith in God, that you trust him with your life, and even preach a good sermon on it. But if the devil comes knocking on the right door at the right time, you may find out what you really are made of, just like I did. So let me explain something and expose myself a bit, which is what my book is about. It's really, I'm exposing things that I did wrong in order to show you a better way, and that how God can turn things around. So in December of 2020, my granddaughter and I flew out to the state of Washington to visit my son and his family. And while there, he and his wife took us to Leavenworth, Washington, a place way up in the mountains that I call Christmas Town, because they have decorated it up and lit it all up like Christmas. It was beautiful. If you ever wanted to get in the Christmas mood, I'll tell you, that was just a beautiful place. But the trip going up was not so bad. The weather was rainy off and on, but roads were clear. Things were pretty nice the first day and night we were there. It was still going up in the mountains, let me tell you. This place they took me to is definitely up in the mountains with windy roads and everything. But I sat in the back seat and, a little rain and everything, but it was pretty good, okay? But on the second day and night, it began to snow and snow and snow, bringing down a blanket of snow everywhere and making Christmas Town look very magical. That part of it was okay. That was really nice. It was wonderful. But all that snow brought the devil knocking at my door. I mean, you probably just can't even relate or imagine, or maybe you can, how you can be having this Christmas Town experience, this beautiful snow coming down. And here's why. Because great fear and anxiety began to overtake me concerning the roads on the mountains. I'm thinking, oh, see, when the devil came knocking, I got up and answered. I listened intently to his reasons why I should indeed be afraid of driving back down those mountains, with some of those roads being very snake-like and scary, even on a clear day. I mean, if you take the time to listen to him or sit down and have a cup of coffee with the devil, so to speak, he's going to give you all kinds of reasons that seem very logical. And it's just like, oh, wow, yes, if this snow doesn't stop and these roads clear up, I don't know how we're going to make it down those mountains. I mean, I just was really in a bad way. And I was trying to fight it, and I didn't want to ruin, my family time together with them up there having Christmas together. But it nearly ruined my second day up there. I pushed through as best I could to continue to enjoy the magical moment of the snow and the lights and the whole Christmas atmosphere. And just being there with my family, it was special, and I sure did not want to ruin it for them. From this point, I'm going to share some things I wrote in my journal while up there going through this. It will help me to stay on point with my story. I said, "Dear Lord, it did snow a lot yesterday, and I confess my anxiety flared up. And fear came knocking at my door, and I got into all the what-ifs of the next day's trip back to Lacey, Washington. I know, Lord, that you said we are not to take any thought about tomorrow or be anxious for anything, and that you have not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, joy, peace, and a sound mind. I confess that I pretty much had anything but that going on in my life. I repent of my fears and doubts and anxieties." Then I go on. I want to make some points here. I said, "I'm sorry that when fear came knocking, I got up and answered the door. I even listened to his reasons of why I should be concerned and fearful and uptight. And I agreed with his reasoning. I mean, it's hard not to. How do you not look at all that snow? You know you're way, way up in these high mountains. You already know going back down, you're going to be hitting these windy snake roads. And you just picture and visualize all this ton of snow that is dropped on these roads. And you're thinking, yeah, I know, I get it. Which, when a person gives into those type of things, this is what happens. You're basically saying God is not God enough to protect you and answer your prayers. Wow. It's like you are telling a man, hey, you're not man enough to handle and fix this. God is all God. He's full of power. He knows all things. He is in control of all things. But if you do not know him like that, you will be vulnerable to the temptations of the devil when he comes knocking. Wow. Lord, I do feel I have failed you. I have made little of you. I preach that you are all that and a bag of chips, so to speak. But when it gets down to the nitty gritty of certain fears that I have, look what happens. Wow. I mean, I guess, I just can't imagine people, you just think about the things that you confess about the Lord that you say he is. Oh yeah, I believe in God. I have great faith. And, I go to church, I read my Bible, I do all these things. But then all of a sudden, when this kind of fear or other kind of fears, maybe you wouldn't be afraid to be up in the mountain with a ton of snow coming down. Maybe that wouldn't bother you. You could think about, yeah, that sounds like fun. That sounds like a challenge, going back down the mountains with all that snow. But that wasn't the way I was thinking. And but I didn't realize at the moment when I was going through all that I was making little of God, and that's what hurt my heart. I should never confess out of my mouth anything that makes God look little or incapable of helping me. How many times have we said things like, "Oh wow, I don't know what I'm going to do." You walk the floor, you wring your hands, you say, whatever it is that's happening, because in my heart, I was saying that, I was doing that. It's like, oh man, what are we going to do? How are we going to get down there? And I don't like heights anyway. And dealing with being in a place like that was really challenging for me. I said to God, wow, God, I feel so ashamed of myself that I acted this way. With you on my side, I should be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who said to the king, no matter what happens, we will not bow to you or your statues. Whatever it was the king wanted to do to them, they refused, and they knew they could be thrown into the fiery furnace and burned up. Wow. I thought about that. These were 3 Hebrew boys, and they were told to bow down to a statue. You can imagine that. Now, this is a different kind of fear. I didn't have a fear of, what they were going to do to me if I didn't bow down to something. But I still, ultimately, my fear was about, dying on the mountains. They resisted. These were boys, and they resisted. They refused. They said, this is the kind of relationship they had with God. They knew God in such a way that there was no way this king, who had the power to take their life, was going to change their mind. They said, no matter what, you throw us in the fiery furnace and let us, we be burned up. And they were thrown in the fiery furnace. It wasn't like, okay, they confessed and they told the king, no matter what, they didn't give in to their fear. That doesn't say there wasn't some sort of fear in their flesh, but they didn't let it out. They didn't speak about it. They didn't act upon it. They were motivated by something greater. They had a relationship with God, and they knew no matter what, we are not bowing down. The Word of God says, we are not to have no other gods before us. But we don't think we're bowing down to idols or statues when we give in to things like sin and fear. We're bowing down to that. We're making a choice at that moment to bow down to that. Well, they made a choice, these 3 boys. And guess what? The king did have them thrown into the fiery furnace. Absolutely threw them in there. And then I believe they even turned the fire up, made it even hotter. And then the king looked over and he said, hey, didn't we throw 3 in there? Because I see 4, and 1 looks like the Son of God. And they was delivered up out of that after they went into the fire. They was delivered because God was in there with them. They got brought up out of that fiery furnace, and there wasn't a smell of smoke on them. Their clothing did not get singed or anything. And as a result of that, the way they responded to what was being put before them, then the law was changed. The king changed the law, and everyone was now to serve their God. That's what happens if you make the right choice and you don't submit. This story could have went a different way. They could have said, "Oh, king, please, please, please don't do this. Don't put us in this fiery furnace. Okay, we'll bow down to your statue. Maybe God won't really care. I just don't want to be put in that furnace. I don't want to be burned up." They could have went that way. Or they could have did like I did. Fear come knocking at their door, and they get up and answer, and they think about it a while. I don't think they even stopped and thought about it. They already knew. It was already in their heart. They already knew they was not going to give in to that. And fear would have been the biggest thing, biggest motivator to give into. So, but that was okay because they were not going to make little of their God. They did not give in to their fears. So we gotta think about how are we responding? How are we acting? Even the 10 spies, the 12 spies was sent out to, examine and spy out the land. And 10 of the spies came back with a very bad report, and it scared the people off. They said, oh, there's giants over there in the land. They had this fear and everything, and I don't know how we're going to conquer them. But 2 of them came back with a positive report. And that's what I want to say. If fear comes knocking at your door, don't listen, don't answer it. You just right away recognize, hey, I know where you're coming from. I submit myself to God. I resist you, and you got to leave. Because we want to think about how are we representing God. I say God is able to do all things, and he is a good God and worth serving. Well, thank you for tuning in today, and may you have a blessed day.